Welcome to your Daily 5 for Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. Thanks to a listener suggestion, Lando and I watched another film together over the weekend, which ended up being a very surprisingly good movie for what it looks like it's going to be. The film is from 2000, I think it's 2021 is the release date. I think it was meant to be released in 2020, but I'm not really sure. There's a little bit of fuzziness around the production, but the year I most often see is 2021. 2021 film titled Zone 414, starring Guy Pearce, who most people would probably know from films like LA Confidential, or, as Lando immediately remembered, Lockdown, the Escape from New York ripoff film that was actually apparently sued because it was such a ripoff film. And so looking at the trailer, looking at the film, looking at the reviews, you wouldn't necessarily think the movie was going to be anything other than, as many of the reviews accuse it of, being a low-budget Blade Runner ripoff. And to be fair to those reviews and just how the film presents itself, in the first 10 to 15 minutes, that's pretty much what it looks like. To the point where you almost would think they would get sued with some of the things they're doing in the beginning because they are such Blade Runner ripoffs. But after it kind of gets past that initial hurdle where it's setting up the basic events and characters who are going to be involved, the movie begins to change. And it becomes something else. Lando described it, he has a word for it, and I'm sure when we talk about it on Friday, there's a word for the type of detective story it is. He got it right away, but I can't remember what the word is. But it becomes really a kind of classic noir detective story with all of the science fiction cyberpunk drapings on it, which of course is what Blade Runner was. But it is not a copy of Blade Runner. It definitely borrows some very specific terminology, at least in the beginning of the film, and a lot of visual iconography of both Blade Runner films, the original and the follow-up, interestingly. But it really tries to do its own thing, and I think by the end, and Lando agreed with me on this, like I said, we'll talk about it on Friday, and the commentary will be on the Patreon. It ended up being a largely successful film, in that it made you think from the opening, from the basic trappings of the movie. Again, the visuals, very much. If you were only to look at this without any of the plot, just look at selected scenes, you would probably feel, as many people did, that this is a Blade Runner ripoff. But if you actually watch the film and you pay attention to the narrative and how it resolves, it is not a Blade Runner ripoff. It is just using a lot of the kind of decoration of what Blade Runner established as the cyberpunk neo-noir genre. So it is absolutely borrowing those elements. And I think it's doing it, at least in my opinion. It does that to hide the fact that it doesn't have a tremendous budget. And so what it's doing is, this is a way around, when you cannot design a world yourself because you don't have the ability or the talent or the money to do so, what you end up doing a lot of times, or what you see a lot in these lower budget films, is they end up putting things in that you recognize as elements of other better known movies. And then you kind of fill in those extra details so that they don't have to spend the money on it. But it's got a great soundtrack. Whoever they hire for the soundtrack, that was money well spent. It's very good. And the visuals never look cheap. You know, you can definitely tell where they had to kind of hold back. They might have wanted to do something bigger or grander in certain places, but it never looks inexpensive. They shoot it in a way that the visuals are still effective. You know what the world is supposed to be. You understand where you are. There's just enough to make it seem near future without going overboard, or again, having the ability to do the kind of work that a movie like Blade Runner did. This is not Ridley Scott with that kind of vision and ability to make, and talent to make that happen. But it works very well. I think it's very entertaining. It's free to watch. It's currently on Pluto, and I think I saw it on either Free TV or Tubi also had it. And I think everybody in it, except for one actor, who we'll talk about on Friday, the one actor is so over the top that it becomes a comedic performance. But everybody else is actually very good. Guy Pearce's accent is questionable because I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. He would have been better off just doing a kind of generic American accent. But everybody in the movie is doing good work. I like the way the story resolves. Again, I'm not going to get into spoilers this time, or in this episode. We'll do it on Friday. But if you looked at Zone 414, which we somehow both missed, Lando and I did not know about this movie, but if you look at it and just go by what it looks like and what the reviews are, then you're going to be shortchanging yourself because it's a lot better than just another Blade Runner ripoff. Later.